And now it's Too Late with Alan Mosley.
Guys, welcome back for another episode of It's Too Late. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by the number one producer in Blake Knight.
Blake Knight.
And the number one producer in Blake Knight. It's, oh my God, what happened to your face, Blake?
Roll Tide.
You're gonna make our zero fans from Alabama upset by saying that.
Are you sure about that?
Blake, what
Is that
happened?
Roll Tide?
Did you get into a fight? You've got a rough family over for Christmas, huh?
Yeah, I think I got in a fight with a pastry.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's bad.
Well, you can't even notice it.
Yeah, really?
You can't even notice
I
it.
gotta stick on my tongue, so it's kind of like.
Oh, well, we can notice it now.
No,
It's if we could refrain from the tongue action on the program, that would be great.
It's a face only a mother can love, right?
So, guys, we're back from our Christmas hiatus. I mean, it's really only 1 week. So we don't do an episode the week of Thanksgiving,
Right.
And we don't do an episode the week of Christmas, but we do an episode every other week of the year.
Yeah.
And so the good news is that now you can expect a new episode every week.
Right.
The bad news for us is that you can file it away into the back of your mind.
Uh-huh.
Our next week off is Thanksgiving
Yeah.
of next year. Yeah.
But that's okay. The way things have been going, there's plenty to talk about.
There's plenty to talk about. You know, I got some messages of concern from some folks.
Oh, did you?
Over Christmas. I did.
Concern.
Because some people know that so Anna Kay and I live in South Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could say that I got my Christmas started off with a bang, is one way of putting
yeah,
it.
I bet.
So I had some messages of concern, some people saying, hey, was that near you? Was that bombing in Nashville? Was that near you? Could you hear it? Like, did you hear it? Did you hear sirens, all that stuff? And so I did hear sirens. I didn't hear a bang.
You didn't hear the boom.
But I had some, of course, in some of our closer, intimate friends like Mike Meharry, who asked me just simply, why are you blowing crap up? That was his question. So I can answer that. It's a totally honest mistake. Yeah. So what happened is that overnight I went all around Nashville stealing everyone's presents.
Okay.
And I don't have a giant sleigh and a red sack, so I just put it all in an RV. And then apparently, you know how it is, there's a battery situation and someone's electronic and the battery ruptures. And it turned into this whole big thing. And long story short, I think I'm going to be in Guantanamo Bay for next Christmas. That's.
Or you're just the Grinch.
I'm just kidding.
I know.
Don't. If you're listening, FBI, it wasn't me.
I know.
And of course, I know they're thinking, well, that's exactly what you would say. If it's no, they've already swept it all under the rug.
I know.
It's already gone.
Yeah, it's over.
Did you notice that?
Yeah. It
So
was in a snap of the fingers, man.
I saw some people making the parallels of, remember the shooting in Vegas?
Uh-huh.
Like we covered that a couple of weeks on the show here. So there was the shooting in Vegas where allegedly that one crazy poker player guy was up on the 50th floor, and he goes in there with a ton of rifles and crap, and he's just mowing people down. But the thing is that, so first of all, and granted, eyewitness accounts aren't necessarily, that doesn't necessarily mean more accurate. There's always studies that show that what people think they see and hear.
Oh, I seen it.
Yeah, exactly so. But there was a lot of accounts of people disputing what the media was saying, that there was multiple shooters or shooting coming from multiple directions. Yeah. Or that that the elevation wasn't right, or that this guy, what motivation does this guy there's no motive, there's if you're just basic private eye 101, you're looking at motive and opportunity and all that stuff, and you're like, what? Just a lot of this stuff doesn't add up. And then you might recall there was the whole thing where they had his house cornered off.
Yeah.
But then there was a break-in into his house, and his computers and stuff were stolen. Fancy that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then his brother went to the press and was saying this is all BS. And then allegedly they found kiddie porn on his, wouldn't you know, they just so happened to find that on the brother.
Yeah.
And then he goes away. But then it all goes away, right? Yeah. I haven't heard about any updates in the news about that. no investigation into the motivations of why, like, it's just gone.
Yeah.
It's been memory hold.
Yep.
And that's totally what has already happened with the Nashville bombing.
That's right.
With this one, it wasn't even like it was 2 weeks later it got memory. It was memory hold like that night.
I know, 24 hours, it's over.
And I saw some people complaining that like Trump didn't make any public statements about it, which I don't really care. Like whether a president does or doesn't acknowledge something is totally irrelevant to my life. But he didn't. And then not 24 hours later, it wasn't really in the news anymore. And so they're claiming that the guy, this Anthony whatever guy, he apparently did it. And I guess they're saying it was a suicide, right? Yeah. And he died in the explosion. And it's like, all right, that's it. You know, nothing to see here. Yep. But it's like, who does that though? Yeah. Who wants to commit suicide and then decides the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to get in an RV, load it with explosives, drive down to 2nd Avenue, just so happen to be right in front of the AT&T location where they've got all the tech stuff and like the hub for all the text and the wire, the data and how that there's some there's ties to the NSA and ties to all this other, and that just so happens to be where the bombing is. Yeah, I don't know. And but all of that is purely a coincidence because dude just wanted to off himself. Yeah. You know what the problem is?
What's that?
The problem is he could have saved himself a lot of hassle and could have saved all the conspiracy theorists out there a lot of tinfoil. That's right. If he had just gone to euthanasia.com to get the information he needs to make the right choice. Yeah. If he'd been watching this show and gone there, then we wouldn't be sitting here talking about there being a bombing on Christmas morning. Yeah. So, in my town. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. You know, I'm glad you sold that RV, boss.
I wish you hadn't brought that up at all. See, I made a joke about it being me, but then I said it wasn't me, and now you're kind of leading audiences back to me. And I think you're just out to replace me. I'm redundant already, and it's too late with Blake Osborne. That's what's.
Oh, it would be too late.
you're gonna have to get that. You're gonna have to get that cap though before you.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
I'll ask you really quick before we take the break. So, did you have a socially distanced 10-person only Christmas, or did you say I'm gonna do whatever I want?
I did whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Had family over and everything, and guess what? Nobody got sick, hurt, or into any trouble.
I'll tell you what I did.
What?
I did exactly what I wanted, which is nothing.
Nothing.
I didn't do anything. I promise I'm not actually that big of a Grinch. It's more that it's not that I'm a Grinch specifically for Christmas. I'm a Grinch 365 days a year. Oh, we all know. And so me and Annika didn't do anything. Well, like she went and saw her mom and then came back and then we ate cookies.
Oh, well, eating cookies is doing something.
What? Yeah, but you mean they weren't Christmas cookies though. They were just chocolate chip cookies. Like they weren't.
That's not sad.
They weren't like little Christmas trees and what? This is
chocolate chip cookies, dude.
So I said we're gonna take just a second. I just wanted to get a question about Christmas in there, and then we were gonna go to the commercial break because we were right on time. Okay. The show there was a good flow,
well, and you had to mention cookies.
It's ruined now.
Okay, well,
it's ruined now.
Very good.
So let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. If you're enjoying tonight's show, consider supporting the program by becoming a member of our Patreon. That's over at patreon.com/Alan Mosley. Hey Blake.
Yeah.
What time is it?
It's time for
The waiter says, "Your steak, sir, very rare." Me, wow, that is rare. Republicans who cut spending. So in our thing now where we try to make it relevant to the news segment of the show. So we're going to talk about the stimulus bill a little bit later. Believe it or not, one of our most viewed episodes from 2020, because this is kind of like our New Year's episode, like it's the last episode. Yeah. It's not right on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day,
but it's the last one of 2020.
It's the last one of 20. So this is like our New Year's spectacular.
There you go. Our hindsight.
So it's not like we have a whole episode built around looking at 2020. Right. We're moving on.
Yeah,
but
it's over.
With that said,
yes,
one of our most watched episodes of this last year was the episode we did back early in the year about the last stimulus bill and all the pork and stuff that was in it.
Oh yeah.
And wouldn't you know, we couldn't get out of 2020. Here we are, last week of the year, and we got another stimulus bill loaded with pork, and we're going to talk about it too.
It is.
So that's what we're going to do later in the show, but you might be shocked to learn that it was a bipartisan effort to rack up another $1 trillion in debt, right?
Yeah.
So let's answer some viewer mail.
Love that. Love it.
Yeah, it's good.
So good.
All right, we actually have too much. So you know how it goes. Is we had too much viewer mail, and I had said we're gonna have to start being pickier because we have too much. And then we went through like a month-long stretch where Facebook just totally shadow banned our page, and we had like no viewer mail.
There you go.
And I actually put out a tweet that said we might have to kill viewer mail because we just don't have any reach. And now we're back to having way too much.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But see, it's better to have a plethora, the plate that overfloweth, than not enough. Yes.
All right. Andrew Avery writes, Dear Alan and Blake, if you were the Invisible Man, what manner of shenanigans would you inflict upon mankind? Okay. Well, I don't know. Like there's something sinister about that question.
There definitely is. I'm like afraid to answer that one.
Like that's wishful thinking by Andrew, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would involve getting rich.
So like, it's kind of like a superpower question.
Yeah,
like if you had the superpower of invisibility,
right?
What would you do? Yeah, I mean crime.
Just in general.
Just crime.
Just general crime.
Yeah.
Nothing specific. Mayhem.
It's kind of like the Joker where he says, this town needs a better class of criminal. Like if I was the Invisible Man, I would be like top shelf criminal.
So you'd be a classy Invisible Man.
Well, I'd be a criminal Invisible Man, but I would.
But you'd still be classy.
But a higher class of criminal. It's not class C. It's a higher class of criminal.
There you go. So you'd be an Invisible Man with a top hat.
I feel like you're only half watching the show this week. It's not that you're not watching the show at all, but you just hear a few words out the side of your head and you respond to. Yeah, I think so.
Just in my imagination, I feel like if I was the Invisible Man, I would be getting rich.
Andrew also, by the way, because he can't help himself, he says, will the media's traditional New Year's review of the year just passed be nothing but 2020 hindsight?
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I mean, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
Yes.
That joke's everywhere.
I'm gonna start showing my social displeasure towards bad puns by just giving the simple yes and no answers.
There you go.
Whereas if I talk about it, I must have liked it. Yeah. So for that one, yes.
Good.
Mary Lynn Willimowski, Liberty Late Night, asks, Dear Alan and Blake, do either of you make New Year resolutions? Blake, do you have any New Year resolutions?
No. Just survive.
Good God. You make that sound like you're having some kind of medical emergency situation. I mean, I guess technically, you kind of are, but that's not life-threatening.
Do you know how many hours I'm going to have to spend to get that fixed?
How many?
Ugh.
I mean, it's
not to mention money. Lord.
Well, I mean, if they would just
got dental insurance.
So you guys are going to have to go to patreon.com/Alan Mosley.
You have to start a GoFundMe.
We also, by the way, we got our website up that has PayPal and all that stuff on it.
So good.
So AlanMosley.tv. So go there, click on support, type in 999-999-99, and your credit card information, and hit enter so that Blake can have a new face. Lal Dario asks, Dear Alan and Blake, Is now a bad time for me to release my single? If you can hear this message, evacuate now. So, okay. So that's another thing too, is that like people, like it's just that it's too tidy. Like they're trying to sell people that this is legit. Like, well, it was a suicidal guy, but he didn't want to hurt anybody else. So he went way out of his way to construct like a PA to have a speaker blaring of, with like a recorded message. Dude, people who want to kill themselves,
they just
kill themselves. They don't they
don't make a show out of it.
Like, it's not Breaking Bad where Walter White constructs this big elaborate scheme to do the thing. It's just dude.
But you know about the Petunia Clark thing, right? I mean, he was playing Downtown by Petunia Clark. Well, now she's got like rankings, or that song's now jumping up on iTunes. It's jumping up on the charts. I mean, at least somebody benefited from it.
The Rankins, huh?
No, the Rankins.
Yeah. Where are you from? The Rankins.
Oh, I don't know.
Adam Sakozin writes, Dear Alan and Blake, will you let Blake answer this question? Blake?
No.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
Suzanne Sherman writes, Dear Alan and Blake, what are you doing for New Year's Eve? I was going to say I'm doing this crappy podcast, but this is New Year's Eve. So we're a day early.
Eve of the New Year's Eve.
I'm going to be at an event on New Year's Eve.
You sure are.
And then I'm going to go home.
Right.
And I mean, like we go through this every week. Like we're not drinkers and partiers really. So it's not like I'm going to go out and do anything like that.
We're so uncool.
And I mean, I guess I'll probably try to watch some sports ball.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't want to get into a big long sports thing, but UT had a terrible season. They were 3-7, but then they got a bowl game anyway because there's not enough teams for the bowl games because of the Rona.
Yeah.
But then they're not going to their bowl game because of the Rona. So no bowl game for me. Clay Davis writes, Dear Alan and Blake, what was the first firearm you ever discharged, and who were you with at the time, and how old were you?
Oh.
All right. Blake, do you want to answer that one?
Sure, I was a Boy Scout.
Oh, you were a Boy Scout.
Actually, I was a Weeblo. Do you know what the Weeblos are?
Weeblos
are right between the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts. There's that little section there called Weeblos. And we actually went for our hunting and rifling badges. I was probably 11, maybe 12. And it was me and my whole little Boy Scout troop. We went out to a gun range. It was done by the police down in Dade County, Florida. And we got to shoot these little rifle thingies that I guess there were a little 22 cartridge in there, and you just bolt action. Just, it wasn't bad, but hey, it was a lot of fun.
All right. I don't think I want to be associated with an organization called We Blow.
Stop.
So I was probably about 7.
Oh, okay.
And it was a 357 Magnum revolver.
For a 7-year-old?
Yes.
Was there a video of this?
I learned to shoot with a 357 revolver when I was like 7.
Did you drop it?
And no, I didn't.
Wow.
And it was it was my dad. My dad took me and my brother out to the rock quarry.
Here you go, boy. Hold on real tight.
We don't pay money to go to shooting ranges like losers. We just go out to the rock quarry.
Hey, I
go out to the rock quarry,
man. A badge. It's pretty cool.
You got a We Blow badge. Yes, you did. So we went out to the rock quarry. He handed me a 357 and said, "Do what you got to do." And there you go. There's the answer. Clay, I feel like, is getting information about us he maybe didn't want. Jonathan Carranza writes, Dear Alan and Blake, what do you plan to do with your $600? Yay. Well, it might end up being $2,000.
Well, maybe.
But right now it's $600. Yeah. We're going to actually talk about that some in the next segment, but we'll go ahead and knock this out. So what are you going to do with your MAGA bucks?
My MAGA bucks, I don't know.
Don't know?
It's not enough to pay the water bills.
I'm going to go out to the rock quarry and do what I got to do. Bob Smiley writes, Dear Alan and Blake, what do y'all believe, and he says y'all, by the way.
Y'all.
What do y'all believe a proper size serving of bacon is? Proper would be as much as you can eat.
Yeah.
Of bacon.
And more.
But it's got to be crispy. So we had a little bit of conjecture about this. I think we had a viewer mail maybe a few months ago where somehow bacon came up, and there was people in the chat arguing, because that's what my fans do. They just yell at each other. They were arguing about whether or not you should have crispy bacon or, like, I guess,
chewy bacon,
gay bacon,
chewy,
loser bacon,
limp,
because that's what it is.
Right.
There's really only two types of bacon. There's crispy bacon and there's just live pig.
Yeah.
That's the only two. And I don't want to eat a live pig, so I'll take crispy bacon. You know, the irony there is that I actually love, like, steak to be rare.
Yeah.
I want it, like, bloody.
Okay.
But bacon needs to be crispy.
Okay. Well, I can understand that.
And as I'm sitting here describing this in graphic detail and I see myself on the monitor, I realize, and now you know that.
Yeah.
That's just now a thing you know about me. This show isn't even about anything anymore. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that the show used to be, like, about subjects, and now it's just not about?
No.
But it's not Seinfeld. It's not like it's not that it's a show about nothing. It's just nothing. It's not a show. It's just nothing.
It's just nothing.
I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get our fans to send us more stuff to eat.
Yeah.
Not insane chips.
Right.
Just
kill us.
Something.
Yeah.
We had something salty last time. I think it's time for something sweet.
Look, I ain't eating no bugs.
I don't know, man. If someone sent us, like, actual, like, deli, you know, bugs, I think we should eat them.
Not going to do.
By we, I mean you.
No.
But that's what I mean. I mean you.
No sheep eyeballs.
Rachel Watson Kinnerly asks, Dear Alan and Blake, were you successful in your super spreading endeavors over Christmas holiday, or do we need to wait 2 weeks before the carnage materializes? Now, I know Rachel is joking, but we actually had a big event back in March when all this stuff was kicking off.
We did.
It was our 2020 live special here. It was episode 100.
That's right.
And every living libertarian, so that's 17 people, and then their friends and family, were all here in attendance. And to my knowledge, most people lived.
Yeah, most.
Yeah. Most. We lived. That's the most important thing, so that we can get to episode 150.
That's right.
By the way, that's March 20th.
It is.
March 20th of next year is episode 150 live here at the studio.
That's right.
Everyone's invited to attend. We have our website, so you can just go to alamosley.tv and click on the link at the bottom where it says to attend the live show, and there you go.
Very good.
It's so good that we have all that stuff made.
Yeah.
So you can actually thank Rob, the sorcerer, for getting all of our stuff done.
Absolute genius.
Because I can't do it, and Blake won't do it. So Rob did do it.
Rob can. So.
That's the three crew members of the show is can't, won't, and did. and did isn't even on the show.
I know.
Can't and won't are the people on the program. Sherry Voluntary writes, Dear Alan and Blake, are angels dead babies? So I think dead babies are angels, but angels are not necessarily dead babies. They could just have been dead other people that were not babies when they died. But unless you're one of these people that thinks that the baby didn't have time to accept Jesus into his heart, so they actually all go to purgatory. You know what I'm saying? Like, so all the aborted fetuses, if you go to purgatory, you'll know this is how you'll know. You'll know you're in purgatory if you're literally swimming in a sea of fetuses. It's a good thing we're on the last question. Jeff Johnson writes, Dear Alan and Blake, why do people in Nashville hate RVs so much? They don't. I already explained this. It was just a big misunderstanding, but I don't even know why I bothered answering that question, because right now everyone's thinking about swimming through aborted fetuses and you're trying to breathe. It's like, I'd imagine the consistency's more like quicksand than it is like water.
Or gel.
Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. RVs.
And so again, we're right back full circle to what is this show about? You know, sometimes I get comments, by the way. I know now we're over and it's your fault because you're a terrible producer and we're over time. But now I'm going to go on another quick rant. Sometimes people in the chat, when we premiere the episodes, Wednesday nights at 9 Eastern, sometimes people will actually write in the chat, what's going on here? And the answer is you just have to stay tuned. Like what I hope happens, this is how you can tell whether or not this program is successful. It's unsuccessful if people say, what's going on here? And then turn it off. It's successful if people say, what's going on here? And then keep watching.
Yes, sir.
We will be right back after this break. Don't go away. Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. Email us at info@alanmosley.tv. Did you see that we actually fixed the commercial?
Yeah, we did.
It only took us like 4 months.
Yeah.
From the time that we changed to the new site to now.
Granted, it still needs some tweaking, but it's getting better.
I wonder if there was anybody that emailed that address saying, I really like this show.
Yeah,
How's $1 million sound?
It'd be great. I
And
mean,
it got kicked back, and they said, well, I guess they just don't want, my money's no good.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame. People really should go ahead and email us their ad, and we'll charge a little fee, and we'll play it, and great.
If that did happen, it really is a shame.
Yeah, it really
is. It really is. So there you go. So stimulus bill. So we're going to dig into this a little bit. We're going to talk. So we're going to reference an article from The Hill that talks about the stimulus bill. So it says Congress's 5,593-page Porky relief bill is essence of the swamp. I love how they call it Porky.
Essence.
The essence.
Yes.
The essence of the swamp. Yeah. So as you might recall, when they passed the stimulus bill back, what was it, like somewhere like 1st of April, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
So when they passed the first stimulus bill, we on this very program talked about, look at the massive amount of special interest pork. Look at all the handouts that people are getting.
Oh, and it was rich.
And while it would be better that they didn't just print and inflate the currency to pass these ridiculous bills at all, if you're gonna have the bill and there's nothing I could do to stop it, then I would prefer that dollar amount go to folks, rather than go to a bunch of special interests and companies.
Yeah.
But of course, you can kind of do the basic math and show, well, if the stimulus bill is, whatever, $900 billion, and you just divided that amongst, what are 300 million people, everybody should be getting several grand. But of course they're not.
Exactly.
They're only going to get $600. And the answer for that is of course, I think the way I'd put it's like 4 out of every $5 is special interest money.
Exactly.
And then that remaining dollar out of 5 is like, okay, you 300 million people fight over that last dollar. That's how that's a quick way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But we're gonna. I know some people have already done this, but screw you guys. It's a weekly show and we didn't do Christmas. I'm sorry. So we're gonna look into it. So before I get into this long random list of exhibits of all the pork, and this is, by the way, this is not a comprehensive list. Right. This is just a short list of them. Yeah. There's one in particular I want to bring up.
Okay.
You might remember from the episode we did on this before, we talked about the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about the Kennedy Center and how they got like whatever it was, like $40 or $50 million.
Something like that, yeah.
And so that was one of the special interests that got money. Okay, whatever. Fast forward to now. Before the bill came out where the public could read it, I had actually messaged our friend Michael Clark, who's been on this program before, and I had said, I wonder if the Kennedy Center will get some more. Okay. Just because it was just one of those things where like it popped into the back of my head of I remember that was one of the cronies that got the handout last time. And then I got curious. I was like, I wonder what their operating budget is. And so I actually did a little digging and I found out, so the Kennedy Center's annual budget is $37 million, which by the way, that seems high for what the Kennedy Center is, but not going to go there. It's $37 million. And so they had gotten something like $40 or $50 million in the last stimulus. Okay. And so okay, so they're closed and they're listed on their site as a public-private partnership. They're a 501c3. They're tax exempt, and all public-private ever means. Write this down. All public-private ever means is that on the private end they can make money and keep it. And on the public end, if they need money, the government will bail them out. That's all public-private ever means. And that's what they are.
Right.
So the point being is that they've got their budget paid for no matter what happens, whether they're able to host any live events, whether they don't, whether they have any annual fundraisers, whether they don't, whether they sell tickets or not. Budget's paid for. Everyone's going to be fine. Also, like to add, by the way, they still laid off some of their staff. Wow. So even though their budget was totally guaranteed by the feds, they still laid people off, which then makes you wonder, well, then where's the money going to go?
Exactly.
It's going into somebody's pocket.
Right.
But that being neither here nor there, I was like, I wonder if they'll get another round. They shouldn't, right? Because they should have never gotten any of them.
Right.
But they shouldn't get another round because, well, if their annual operating budget is like $37 million and they've already gotten like $40 million from the first stimulus, then it's not like if it were you or me and we lost, say, half of our income to lockdowns, not to the virus, to lockdowns, and then they gave us enough money to cover like half of that.
Right.
So it's not a one-to-one translation. We're not getting reimbursed for what we lost. We're just getting a little bit so that we don't totally go bankrupt.
Exactly.
That's not what they got.
Right.
They didn't get a little bit of cash to get by for 6 months. They got their whole budget just paid off. Okay. Go. Sure enough, the Kennedy Center is in the new bill too, and they're getting another $50 million.
Wow.
And the reason why that really just jumps out, it's just one example amongst many, but the reason why that really jumps out at me is it just goes to show that for the politically connected, for the people who stand to benefit most when the spigot is turned on and the press is printing money, they're not just getting by. It actually pays to be shut down for them.
Yeah.
They're actually getting their operating budget and then their operating budget again, and then like another $10 or $15 million for their troubles by being shut down, as opposed to a regular year where they're just open and their budget's 37 and they want to make 37. Jeez. No. They made $100 million this year being closed.
That's crazy.
And so, and again, while I'm against handouts and stimulus and government spending, because I'm an anarchist, I don't want there to be a government.
Right.
I'm against all of that. But if you're gonna spend the money, why are we giving $100 million over 2 checks to the Kennedy Center, who is not suffering in the slightest,
right,
while you Joe Schmoes who are being ordered to shut your businesses down, here's $600. That ought to get you by.
Go buy a TV.
It's like, it's like the John putting the $600 on the nightstand. So there you go. Thanks a lot, honey. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But that's my little rant about the Kennedy Center. Let's continue. Exhibit A, of the funds appropriated under Title III of the Act that are made available for assistance to Pakistan. Everyone's heard this one already.
Oh, yeah.
Not less than $15 million shall be made available for democracy programs, and not less than $10 million shall be made available for gender programs. $10 million for gender programs in Pakistan, $15 million for democracy programs. We could make a whole episode about just that line.
Sure could.
But I can promise you folks, this has practically nothing to do with gender programs in Pakistan. It has everything to do with some special interest getting paid or some money being set aside for regime change. That's what that means. Democracy programs, if the United States, the empire that is setting aside millions of dollars for democracy programs in another sovereign nation whose business is none of theirs, it's because they want to get involved. That's all that is. And of course the layman would say, what does that have to do with the Rona relief What does that have to do with anything? Why does and I know that there's a bunch of pedants out there, by the way, that'll say these are different bills, that one of these is the omnibus spending bill and the other one is the coronavirus relief package. But they combine them into one.
Yeah.
Then that's how they vote on them in Congress.
Yeah.
So you don't get that excuse.
Right.
You don't get that excuse. If they combine all of that into one, what was it, 5,500 page monstrosity, and congressmen have no chance to read it, and they're told, all right, we're going to vote on it tonight. Here's what I want you to say. Dude, no, it's one bill. So no, you're not going to get to excuse it by saying, well, one's for one. No. It's one bill. It should have been a big fat no.
Yeah.
Exhibit B, funds for, quote, resource study of the Springfield, Illinois race riot. They're setting aside money to do a study on the race riot in Springfield, Illinois. That happened in the year 1908.
What?
They're setting aside money to do a study on the race riot of Springfield, Illinois in 1908. Okay, so
they're not talking about what just happened this last year. They're talking.
No, they're not talking about. They're not talking about any of the George Floyd stuff. They're talking about the race riots of 1908. That's pork.
Wow.
Exhibit C. This is actually my favorite one. Statement of policy regarding the succession or reincarnation of the Dalai Lama.
What?
This is actually beautiful. What this is, if you're wondering what is that, what this is that this is the United States, the state as an official entity, having an official state policy on their view of the succession or reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. And so basically what that is it's kind of a salvo towards China. It's like, you know, it's a little bit social justice-y of, well, this is what we think about, you know, the Dalai Lama, and so we're sending a signal to China that we have an official state position on that.
Okay.
And again,
why?
What does that have to do with the coronavirus stimulus?
Nothing. What has that got to do with anything?
Exhibit D. There's actually a commission tasked with educating, quote, consumers about the dangers associated with using or storing portable fuel containers or flammable liquids near an open flame. So this is like typical Washington swamp. Is if there's a thing and anyone in the room thinks that anything should be done about the thing, the first thing you have to do is establish a commission.
That's right.
That's the first thing you got to do. Then we'll let the commission decide what should be done about the thing.
Right.
So they're establishing a commission on educating consumers about the dangers associated with using or storing portable fuel containers near open flames.
Hey, Billy, don't put that by the fire over there. You gonna blow something up?
I feel like you knocked your tooth out on purpose just for this episode. Exhibit E. Another $40 million for the Kennedy Center. There you go.
Oh, there you
go. So it actually has in here. So they got $25 million last time. They're getting $40 million this time, and the Kennedy Center is still closed.
Okay. What the hell does that thing do?
Well, it's the Kennedy Center. You know, they put on the performances and all that.
It's a theater.
Yeah, you should know that. You're like a studio guy.
I don't care. I've never been to.
You ever heard like the Kennedy Center honors where they?
I'll let you. Who cares? It's Kennedy.
If you don't know something, you should not interrupt me
Kennedy
to tell the audience.
No.
You move your mouth and I'll translate for you what you're saying. For folks at home, what Blake is saying is I don't know what this is. I haven't looked at any of the show notes before now, but I'm going to interrupt Alan anyway. That's what he's saying. Exhibits F, G, H, I, and J. $86 million for assistance to Cambodia, $130 million for Nepal, $135 million for Burma, $453 million to Ukraine, and $700 million to the Sudan.
Wow.
By the way, I know $700 million is the highest number, but I want to back to the Ukraine. Okay. I thought we all decided that Ukraine was run by neo-Nazis. Like, remember back in the news, like 6 months ago or however it was, they were all talking about, oh, Ukraine, you know, we don't want to be tied to Ukraine because Ukraine's got a big neo-Nazi movement. Mm-hmm. But we're sending them $453 million. Maybe
that's the money that Biden took. They're just giving it back.
Exhibit K, A bill to create a women's history museum and an American Latino museum as part of the Smithsonian. Overall, the Smithsonian gets $1 billion.
Wow.
Wow is right. I mean, what else can you even say? So the article goes on. The article stops right there. We're not going to go past Exhibit K. It just says you get the idea. It's the oldest trick in Washington. Take a bill that is symbolic. It's a symbolic bill, right? They call it's COVID relief. That's what it's known as.
Yes.
And it's overwhelmingly supported by the American people just on the title. And I hate that. I wish we could educate more people on not doing this to federal government because they're going to give it to you good and hard, as they say. But that being neither here nor there, there's a lot of people out there hurting. And if they catch wind that they might be able to get some free cash, yeah, they're going to support the bill.
Yeah.
So the overwhelming majority of the public are lining up waiting for this bill to pass. Mm-hmm. And so since they know that they have public support and since they have branded it as COVID relief, that makes it so easy for them to then make it into a 5,500-page monstrosity with every amount of swamp creature in the book that you can think of getting a check. Yeah, I mean, just yikes. I want to give a few more thoughts on that before we move on to the next segment. So some people have talked a little bit about Rand Paul versus AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and how the stimulus bill is just a perfect example of the difference between the two. Now, I've had plenty of criticisms about Rand Paul on this program. I don't worship politicians. So if you're someone in our audience that's like, oh, I love Rand, he's great, I love his dad, you're not going to get that here. However, I will give credit where credit is due. Rand Paul, and he wasn't the only one, but he was one of the ones who had tweeted out on social media and said they literally just handed us the bill. It's 5,500 pages long. We're supposed to vote tonight. I would vote no on it anyway because I'm against the pork barrel spending regardless. But I would also just purely on principle vote against it because I'm not going to vote for a bill I haven't read.
Right.
I'm trying to be a responsible senator, or in AOC's case, a responsible representative. And to me, responsible governance means you read the bill before you sign it.
Right.
And so I haven't read it. Not going to vote for it.
Right.
Simple enough.
Uh-huh.
AOC, ironically, said mostly the same thing. I'll give you one guess. Where do you think she said 90% of the same thing as he said? What do you think her one difference was?
What's that?
She said, they just handed us this bill. We got to vote on it tonight. This is irresponsible governance. I haven't had time to read this bill. No one has. But she voted for it anyway.
Right.
That right there tells you all you need to know about the difference between someone who's all in on government and the swamp and someone who at least tokenly believes in responsible governance. Is one person said, don't have time to read the bill, I won't vote for it. The other one said, don't have time to read the bill, got to do what you got to do, right?
Slam.
I mean, I know we're not surprised. Like it's not like I'm like, no, not AOC. But just the simple fact that she knows it's wrong.
Yeah.
She knows it's wrong, and she's young, so she's one of these new wave Congress critters who gets into office and says, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna make change. And she has an opportunity, which by the way, the bill is gonna pass anyway. Yeah. It passed easily. Yeah. So the point being was, from a political standpoint, you could have voted no and it wouldn't have mattered because it still would have passed. So if you wanted it to pass, your no vote could have been symbolic. But, and while I don't really care about symbolism in government, I care about X's and O's. I don't care about symbolism. Uh-huh. But just the simple fact of, if you're going to be AOC and you're going to make public statements about how no one's had a chance to read the bill and it's full of pork and this is not how Washington should function, then vote no.
Right.
She had that opportunity. Yeah. It was just handed to her on a silver platter, and she still voted for it anyway, which tells you all you need to know about AOC.
Yep.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about this, about the potential change in the size of the checks and what it could mean for old Cocaine Mitch in the Senate runoff.
There we go.
After the break. Don't go away. Yeah?
Yeah.
No. But you've ruined it.
Oh,
ruined
come
it.
on.
So you might have heard in the news more recently that now people are arguing over whether or not are we going to get $600 checks or are there going to be $2,000 checks.
Ooh.
President Trump. So we got to spend some time talking about the Trumpster. You know, his time's nearing an end.
It is.
It's nearing an end.
It is.
And he went up to the podium, made this big, grand public spectacle of talking about how some of the things we'd already mentioned. The bill is huge. It's loaded with pork. Tons of foreign aid. Tons of special interest. If you're going to pass a bill with this much spending, then why would you only give such a small fraction of it to the American people? Exactly. If you're going to have a bill and it's going to be based on COVID relief and you're going to sell it as a stimulus package to people in business, then all of the money should be going to people in business.
Right.
It's great for him to say all that, and maybe it was a bit of a political maneuver to do it. And he ended it with, so I want the checks to be up to $2,000. Let's push that from $600 up to $2,000 checks. Now, a couple of shenanigans that happened along the way. The first one being that when the House ultimately has voted on a resolution to make $2,000 checks. However, old Cocaine Mitch McConnell in the Senate has not allowed it go to a vote yet. He's blocking it.
Right.
Now, this is an interesting thing for those out there who enjoy politics, who enjoy the theater of it all. Here's a few things to consider. So the first thing is that it's easy to sell people on, well, do you want $2,000? Sure. Yeah. It's easy to sell people on. But Cocaine Mitch over here, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, for now, is saying, well, that's irresponsible. We can't just be doling out money. But that's so strange because what I don't understand is that if you were against the bill to begin with, and you voted no, and you're still against it today with it being even more money, and you still vote no, I understand that.
Yeah.
If you were against the bill at first and you voted no because you didn't think it was enough money to people, and then if there was a chance to raise it so that there's more money to people, if that was your caveat, I'm not saying this is right, by the way, I'm saying, but if this describes you, if your caveat was it should be a bigger stimulus to people, and then when they raise it to 2,000, you vote yes, I can understand that.
Right.
Because I can understand that that's your issue, and so you're voting on that issue.
Right.
But what I could never understand is voting yes on the original bill with all of that pork barrel spending, all of that special interest garbage. But then when there's an opportunity to give more money to just regular people, God forbid more money to regular people and you redline some of the crap pork, to say no.
Yeah.
No to that, but yes to everything else.
He's crazy.
That just seems like a politically poor decision.
It does.
It seems very unpopular. I guess the point being is for folks at home, if you're going to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm against inflating our currency, I'm against handouts, I'm no. Yeah. I'm a hard no. Then you should have been no from the first moment to the last.
That's right.
If you were yes at first and no now, you have no credibility.
Exactly.
So that's number one.
Right.
Number two, as you may recall, there's this old Senate runoff down in the state of Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
And the balance of the Senate may very well hang in the balance of that runoff in the state of Georgia. It seems to me like Mitch McConnell is going to have a lot of pressure on him politically, coming from the left and the right, maybe even more so from the right, to cave on this and just let it go to a vote, pass it, get $2,000 checks. I'm not necessarily saying I'm ready to say that's what my prediction is. Like, go ahead and get your scratch offs ready because you're going to get $2,000. It's $600 right now. And I think they've actually already started sending out checks.
They supposedly have.
But there's a chance it could be up to $2,000 based purely on the fact that, look, Republicans don't want to lose the Senate.
That's right.
And if they do something incredibly unpopular right now,
that's right.
That might make it very much more likely they lose that runoff in Georgia.
And hey, I've heard that Georgia's pretty heavy in the Democrat voting bracket.
Well, which by the way, it's tons of Republicans, but by the way, the opposite is not necessarily true either.
Right.
Just because they just start handing out free money, just because the GOP starts making it rain, that doesn't mean they'll win the Senate runoff.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the type of people who are only concerned with what the government can pay them are not necessarily going to vote Republican.
Exactly.
They might be voting Democrat anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it necessarily will determine flat out what the checks will be or who's going to win the Senate runoff. Right. I'm just simply saying that that's what politics is.
Yeah.
Like those are the types of games that get played. Like you see people all the time. And this is the last thing I kind of want to end with before we take our final break. You see people all the time that will make these pie in the sky statements like, well, why can't it just be a simple bill? Why can't it just be the checks for people bill? And here's the checks, vote on it, done. Move on to the next thing. That's not how Washington works.
Never has.
The way Washington works is you get these massive bills together because you try to tie in as many different pet projects as you can into one bill because you want to pass them.
Right.
It may, because if there's the give Alan Mosley $1 million bill, and it's not very popular. It's pretty popular with me, not too popular with everybody else. Right. I don't have the traction. I can't get it passed.
Right.
But if we can just make that part of the stimulus bill, it's just one line in that 5,500 pages, then people may not really want that one, but they feel compelled to vote for the bill because it's the bill.
Yeah.
That's how Washington works. And the last thing, too, by the way, and this is something Justin and Mosh had touched on, is that a lot of people lash out at random Congress people. Like someone could write a Thomas Massey or a Justin and Mosh and say, well, what are you doing? What are you doing to fix this? Why don't you go on to the House floor and say, well, I want to amend this bill. I want to make X, Y, and Z changes. Let's vote.
Yeah.
That's the way a lot of people think that Congress works. And this is why I'm an anarchist. On paper, that's how Congress works. You have your body of representatives. They come to the chambers. Something is brought to the floor. It's brought to the floor for discussion. It's brought to the floor for debate. And then amendments can be proposed and voted on. And then after it's been, because that's what legislating is. Yeah. And after a bill has been legislated to a point where everyone has had a chance to break it down, discuss it, take it line by line, then you have a final form, and then that goes to a vote. Right. On paper, that's how this works. Folks, that hasn't been how it's worked for a long time. It's been a long time since Congress really worked that way, but if you want to be quite literal in the sense of allowing individual representatives to take the floor, debate, suggest amendments, yada, 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 I think Amash said it was something like 2 or 4 years now. Something like May of 2016 or May of 2018 was something like that was the last time that the Speaker of the House brought something to the floor for debate and for proposals of amendments. Wow. That it's been a few years since the legislature met to legislate. Right. And if you're wondering, well, what have they been doing since then? Since that time, for the last several years, The only thing they've been doing is the party leaders decide on the bill. And then the special interest writes your omnibus bill that's, like stacked this high on your table. And then when all of that's done, they decide what the bill's going to entail. They have their cronies write it up. And then they go to the House and say, all right, vote, yes or no. That's all your representative. So your representative at home, wherever you live, if you're hearing my voice, they have about as much say on things as you do.
Yep.
That's the real thing. If you're not a party leader, you really just don't have any say.
Right.
Now, I could say that, well, then the answer is you should just vote no on everything. Be Ron Paul. If that's how they're going to do it, vote no on everything. Well, Rand Paul did. AOC didn't. But you know what? Most didn't. Most didn't, and that includes Democrats and Republicans. This isn't just a partisan thing. The overwhelming majority of people on both sides of the aisle are content to just be given a bill and vote yay or nay, and not really represent, not really legislate.
Right.
That's why it's broken. That's another reason I'm an anarchist. We gotta make a little graphic for it. That's another reason I'm an anarchist. We're gonna take our final break. Don't go away. Like our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/AlanMosleyTV. You can follow me on Twitter. It's twitter.com/AlanMosleyTV. Subscribe to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/AlanMosleyTV. We're also on Parler @AlanMosley, as well as our website is now up.
Yeah.
So we can go back to doing what we used to do, where we say you don't have to do any of that. You just go to our website.
That's right.
The website is alanmosley.tv. You can't get it wrong. It's that easy.
It's that simple.
alanmosley.tv. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.